welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Allie, for those of you who don't know me. I am the maker behind Crochet in the Mud, where I do both crochet plushies as well as pottery. Today's video is going to go over my last market. It was the Lunar New Year market on Sunday, January 26th. It was 6 hours from 12 to 6. Spoiler alert, it was a bad one. So for this market, it started at noon, so we were off to a slow morning, so we didn't have to get there until about 10 o'clock. I got there early, so I just parked in the parking lot and waited until it was actually check-in time. And then we started unloading my car, and we walked inside, and they had been sending a lot of emails leading up to the market saying that there's not very good lighting in the building, which they definitely were not exaggerating. So it was pretty dim in there. And that morning I had grabbed everything for my lights, and I have this Ryobi drill battery that you can plug into. I had it in my hand and then I set it down. So it never actually made it to the market. So I was not able to plug in my main lights. I did have one tiny light. So that's all I had to go with, was one light. So it wasn't the best lit, which was unfortunate because this market, while I normally do crochet plushies and pottery, I only had pottery at this market. This was my first time doing a market with these coordinators, and sometimes when I'm expecting there to be a lot of competition when it comes to getting into a market, if it's my first time with a coordinator, sometimes I will put in the notes that I am willing to split up and only do one category, because I do understand that I have two very competitive categories. So they asked me if I would only do pottery, and it took a lot of deliberation. Usually at my markets, my main seller are plushies, and then I'll sell a couple of pottery items here and there. I am working on trying to change that. Ever since I started making herb strippers, I have been selling more pottery, and I'm also experimenting with different glaze combinations, and this year I'm trying to make different forms. Similar to my herb strippers, I'm trying to make more like single-use kitchen items because people tend to like those, whereas a mug, you can get a mug anywhere essentially. So I am working on expanding my options for pottery. But I did decide, after discussing with my fiance about whether or not I should do this market, to go ahead and do it. The reason they asked me to only do pottery is because they already had a crochet plushie person. So I did eventually say yes, and I paid $127.50 for this market. Going into it, I did have to remember this is a January market. It's not going to be the usual amount of sales. But on the Facebook post, they did have, I think it was 1,500 people interested in coming. So that's a decent chunk of people who might be attending the event. The market started off in a sticky situation. When I went to open my purse, when I was setting up the market, my purse is where I keep all of my electronics for the market. So that's my iPad, my barcode scanner, my external battery to recharge devices if needed, my card reader. All of that is in my purse. And I opened it to see that the can of Fanta that I had packed for drinking at the market had exploded, and it was all over my electronics. I had just put a new case on my iPad literally the day before, so now that is stained, which is totally fine because it's going to get clay all over it anyway when I bring it to the studio. But the biggest issue for me was my barcode scanner, which I spent quite a bit of money on, that I don't need, but I like having it, especially with the pottery items, because I can just scan the barcode real quick and it'll add it to the cart. It's not working. So luckily my fiance is an electrical engineer, so he is going to look into it for me to see if he can repair it so I don't have to buy a new one. His current idea is that maybe because it was orange soda that it just created a current that just drained the battery. So hopefully that is the correct idea as to why it is not working. But that's also how I started this market off, was with my $250 barcode scanner breaking. So hopefully we can fix it. I do need to unload my car because I'm not exactly sure where we put it, but it's somewhere in there. It just didn't get put in the bag that we put all the electronics in to bring them home. So I need to find it, but it should be in my car somewhere. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get very many clips of the actual market. It was really loud inside, so we were all in a building, and they had live music performances and dance performances and all of that in there, so it was loud the entire time, so I couldn't get any clips with audio, otherwise I might get a copyright strike. So I do apologize. I will insert a couple of clips that I do have. I have a clip of my booth setup. Luckily, they gave me a corner setup because we were also in 6 by 8 feet. And for some reason, I could have swore on the email that it was an 8 by 10. So it was less space than I expected. But the fact that I had a corner, I was able to use all of the 2 tables I brought in my bookshelf, and it fit literally perfectly. For the live performances, it does have its pros and cons because it seemed there were definitely a lot of people at the event. Most of them were there for the performances. So then during the performances, it would be slow and there'd be nobody really shopping. And then in between, all of a sudden, there'd be a ton of people coming through. And just rinse and repeat as they had more performances going on. They did have a dragon performance, which was really cool. And I did get a clip of that. So I'll insert that here. Now for how the market went, sales were not great. So I had my stickers and my pottery, as I mentioned earlier, and about 2 hours into the market, I went to go check on my Shopify as to what my sales were doing, as I usually do for markets, and I was surprised because I saw I had made $300 and I was really excited until I realized that my front page that shows you how much money you've made was set to year to date. So it is January, so I'd only made $300 so far for the month. And when I switched it to day of, I was only at 100. So I saw a post recently where everyone always looks at this time of year as the slow season, and they said switch your perspective. This is not the slow season. This is your prep for success season. So I'm trying to remind myself of that, and I knew going into it that it was a January market and probably wouldn't do too well. But overall, after the 6 hours of market, I sold a grand total of $158. So this was actually a net loss market for me. I don't have exact amounts of how long it takes me to make pottery and how much materials go into it. It is something I'm working on. So I did approximate how much I spent on materials and labor for making the items. So of the 158, I estimated about $30 was materials and about $50 was labor for the items that sold, which then left $77 for profit. And after the booth fee, that means I made negative $50 at this event. And I also deserve to get paid for working the market. So if you also include in that, I made negative $164. So it cost me twice as much as the money it made. So this event was not worth it for me. If I had crochet plushies next year, I still don't think I would do it. I was keeping an eye out for the other plushie vendor when I saw kids walking around with them. I think I counted 5 or 6 people with a plushie that I saw personally. I don't think I would come back to this event. I might not do a January event again. While it is nice to have some money coming in, I can't justify a net loss market. Reasons it might have not gone so well: I wasn't able to interact with customers because the music was so loud. I had to shout. So I didn't think it was worth it to be shouting. So I did sit down and just wait for customers to come to me if they had questions. Additionally, the lighting was not the best. So that also didn't help, because for my mugs, I like to do very colorful pottery items. And a lot of them are intricate with different colors in there, and you really need to be able to see those in the light. Especially at outdoor markets, I will tell people, I say back up 5 steps, go into the sunlight, look at this piece. I couldn't do that exactly, and that's okay. You know, you have good markets, you have bad markets. It's just part of being in the market industry. Now to go into what I sold. So for herb strippers, I sold 4. I sold a robin's egg, a green tea, an aurora green, and a purple aster. I did have quite a lot of herb strippers out. I even had so many herb strippers that I had some under the table, which is really great for me to be going into the future, because those are normally things that go quickly. And hopefully I get into an event that I applied to in March. And at that location, I always run through these really fast. So having 50-ish to go into the next market is definitely getting me in a good spot. I sold 2 mugs. One of them was a horse cup. It was on my clearance shelf because a little chunk of it broke off during the glaze firing. So it's still perfectly usable. But that little chunk was bothering me, so I did discount that. It was almost half off. And then I sold a green tea over Cordovan mug. I'll put a picture here of that. And that is one of the mugs that I just made this week. So I am definitely happy that I did go through with doing that kiln firing before this market. Because I was rushing doing a kiln loading, I didn't have the amount of products I normally would. So I did have to use one of the smaller kilns in the guild. I personally like to use the 1280 just because it's only, I think, $1 more at my guild to fire in that kiln, and I get so much more out of it. But I had to use the 1080 this time, if you know kiln sizes. Additionally, I sold one of my ceramic gnomes, which I was happy to see that go. Now I have 1 remaining, and I've had those gnomes for quite a while. When I first started making them, people really liked them and were buying them, and then these last couple I've had for a really long time. And people are now coming up, and just about every person who looks at them tries to take the hat off thinking it's a cookie jar. So maybe in the future I'll make gnome cookie jars, because people keep thinking that's what that is. And then a lot of them will ask me, what is the gnome? And I had to explain, you know, it's just decorative. So I have 1 left. Hopefully that guy sells soon so that I'm out of them. And then lastly, in terms of pottery, I sold 1 spoon rest. And this was also on my clearance shelf because it had warped pretty badly. So it was 60% off. And the person who bought it also bought an herb stripper of the exact same glaze, so it's a matching set. And then I did sell 9 stickers also at my market. I sold a gender queer frog flag as well as a transgender flag frog. I sold an ally fent, a biceratops, 2 of the My Eyes Are Up Here snowman stickers, a non-binosaur sticker, a panda sticker, and a triceratops sticker. So for all of that, I ended up selling $158 worth of product. And again, this was a net loss market for me. The most important thing to do after you've had a net loss market is not to get down on yourselves. I am fortunate enough to have such a supportive partner that he will oftentimes talk me down when I am talking about wanting to not do this full time anymore and go back to having a quote real person job. Luckily this market didn't affect me too much. I had a feeling going into the market that it might not do too well, but I still had high hopes that I could sell product. Will I do more markets with this coordinator? Possibly. I haven't yet decided if I am going to do more events with them. This coordinator did come recommended to me from another vendor at a market. So I might do a couple of markets with them throughout this year. But I am also trying to do less small markets, and focus on more like weekend-long festivals in 2025. Just because I would rather pour all of my energy into one weekend than having to set up, tear down, set up, tear down, set up, tear down, set up, tear down for just a couple hours of sales. I also at this market saw multiple of my vendor friends that I go to a lot of events with and can chat with. So just based on the fact that they were all there makes me think that this coordinator is usually pretty good at their markets. I believe I'll do probably 2 or 3 markets with them this year, assuming I can get in, and just see if I like this coordinator moving forward. So now that this market is over, I am going to get back to just prepping for success for the upcoming year. So thank you so much for watching my video. Please give it a thumbs up if you haven't already, if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And drop me a comment down below of any future videos you'd like to see, whether that's crochet videos or pottery videos. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!